Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. On behalf of CBU, I would like to invite and thank Dr. Komal for joining us today, and all of you, and especially joining on time. I love you guys for that. Inshallah, we'll get started. We have a good gathering today, and it's a great topic that Dr. Komal will be sharing with us. Just a little introduction of Dr. Komal. I'm sure you all know her more than I do, but Dr. Komal Atta is a director of medical education at UMTC. She is an award-winning medical educationist from Pakistan and a fellow of AMEE and ASME, renowned for her innovative work in competency-based training. She's pioneered the use of entrustable professional activities, EPAs, in Pakistan and developed the PAC Compass framework, setting a new standard in the house job and BHU training. A strong advocate of equity, diversity, and inclusion, EDI, her research on adaptive expertise is shaping faculty development globally. Dr. Komal was recently honored with the M.H. Khazi Star Alumni 2024 Award for her exceptional contribution to health professional education. Congratulations, Dr. Komal, and the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Guys, if anyone have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or add it to the chat, and we will take from there. Thank you. Komal, sorry, it's your turn.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Sakina, for such a wonderful and humbling introduction. And I'm really grateful to SIVU for giving me this opportunity. And thank you, everyone who has joined today. It's wonderful to see so many people. We're going to be discussing about a topic which is quite close to my heart as well as my practice. That is how we use social media professionally for medical education. So I'll just be sharing my slides. All right. Now, social media is basically any platform. It can be an app, it can be a website, it can be any platform that we are using currently to interact, network, disseminate information, and basically just collaborate with other people through a technological networking portal. That can be the internet, that can be your telephone, that can be your 4G service. So anything which is used to actually interactively communicate with each other through a networking device is now being defined as social media. These are statistics from the Digital Usage Global Report of 2023. So this was at the start of 23. And you can see that it's going to be slightly higher now. Number of social media users in the world was 4.63 billion. And almost everyone was spending 2.5 hours daily on some sort of social media activity. Users versus total population of the world at that time was 58.4%. And social media users of the total internet users on the world, which were covered by the survey, there are a lot of places which are not covered by this survey, and social media sites which are used by proxy, networks which are banned, so those are not read off also. So 93.4% of the recorded internet users were actually on social media. And right now, it is estimated that almost about 98 to 99% of everybody who uses the internet is going to be using social media in one form or the other. So it's not just an entertainment anymore. It's not just a networking resource anymore. It has become a part of life for the better or the worse, but it's something which is now integrated into daily practice. So with that, what has happened is that the world comes closer. It's become a global village. Everybody's connecting together. There are lots of benefits of using it, but obviously it's a double-edged sword. There are also harms of using it. And till now, the medical education community in particular has not formalized the use of social media as much as I think we should be doing. So that's what I will basically be discussing today, that what are the methods, what are the advancements in the world, and what is the way in which we can actually take social media usage and bring it ahead in medical education and medical clinical experiences. A little brief introduction about my social media profile. I have been the social media coordinator for all of the AME conferences since 2021. Um, I have been known as a social media influencer for some time. So I work with formal medical education on throughout social media websites, mainly Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. I also lead the social media special interest group on AME. So if anybody is interested in contributing there, you're more than welcome. We're going to be starting some webinar series soon. We have a faculty development grant for social media use in faculty development from AME, which I am co-working with Ardi Findiatri from Indonesia. We've done 3 research papers on that. Our work is almost going to be completed this year, and we've had a lot of very interesting outputs. I've also worked with the Universitas Indonesia for their social media project and use of Internet 4.0 for student development and faculty development. Uh, it was a very interesting project. I'm going to talk about that also, what we found out. I'm the current lead for the social media ASME research methodology group. So I work very frequently with medical education in social media, and I get to meet a lot of people who are formally working in it. So I'd like to discuss and let you know some of my experiences and gain more basically from you people as to how we can work together and in a more positive way. Now, here's the roadmap of the presentation or the webinar. Uh, we'll have a very brief discussion about what social media and medical education means. It's abbreviated as SOM now. We'll see some worldwide practices. We'll discuss problems, solutions, and best practices, and then we can have the question and answer. Uh, if you want to have any question in the middle, like Dr. Sakina pointed out, you can just raise your hand or you can write in the chat, and one of us will definitely see it and will get it addressed. So, social media, like I told you, it's a worldwide revolution. However, um, we have cultural, geographical, and certain boundaries where we are using different platforms and different practices. In the global south, particularly in Asian areas, Facebook still happens to be the most popular social media medium. It is followed closely by Twitter, uh, and then there's a huge revolution of using WhatsApp. Technically, WhatsApp was not considered as social media for a very long time. It was considered as a telecommunication channel. However, post COVID, most of the global south, as well as Asian and Arabic countries, have started using WhatsApp as properly the biggest social media resource that they have. WhatsApp has hidden benefits inside for social media use, that it has end-to-end encryption. You can use it with your own particular groups, people who you prefer. So it has those things going on. And you will notice that WhatsApp is being utilized very frequently, very commonly in these areas of the world. However, if you move towards the global north, you will see that WhatsApp is not a social media mode of communication. It's not even a very common mode of communication in especially North America, most parts of Europe and Canada. So they tend to not use it. Over there, you will see that Twitter was the most popular social medium till the time it became X, after which certain laws changed on Twitter. And most of the medical educational community on Twitter had issues with them. And now they're looking forward to other platforms like LinkedIn. There's a new one called Blue Sky. There's some people are on Discord. So X still has a grip on social media, but slowly it's going towards other platforms. And LinkedIn is gaining traction as being the most preferred professional platform. Apart from this, other means of social media that are utilized are podcasts, there are video casts, vlogs. These are not that popular again in the global south. The global north has formalized podcast series for their universities. For example, HMIA is the formal podcast that comes out of the Harvard Macy Institution. The ASME has a bite-sized interactive session. The AME has interactive sessions going on. Keyline podcasts were a key feature of the Karolinska Institute. So people used to listen to them, and they've all been very informative. Um, those who are aware in the global south do listen to them, but a lot of it is still not practiced over here. So podcasting is not that common in the eastern areas of the world as it is in the west. Now, that was about the different ways, the different websites and the different tools of social media that we are using. The particular use of social media in medical education that is coming up right now is obviously an information sharing. Uh, there's a lot of information going on that goes through social media channels. A lot of very good clinicians, very good physicians, they have their channels which have a lot of positive information coming in. There's also some loopholes that, information which is not authentic goes ahead in social media, but nonetheless it's a huge resource. Then there's inspiration when you find out that those who you look up to, or those people who are working in your field, are doing certain things, and you may be able to follow them on Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook, or you may be able to find out how they did it, what they're working for, so that gives a lot of traction. Then you have clinical case discussions. There are proper formal groups that have been formed for discussing clinical cases. Particularly on Instagram, you will see that visual based clinical fields, for example, radiology, dermatology, pathology, they have wonderful social media platforms going on, few but still very good, which are actually discussing a lot of information, and a lot is being learned throughout the world. It's also being used for mentorship. You can find people who are like minded, who can facilitate you, who can help you. I have found a lot of my mentors from social media. I have found a lot of people to interact all over the world from social media, and it has tremendously helped me and is still helping me navigate my own career or my own problems. And then finally, it's a platform that is used for promoting your research. So, this discussion I had with uh, the medical teacher team also, and the Springer team also, as to what do they think now is the way forward on how research will be seen. And the answer from everywhere was altmetrics. So altmetrics come up by the number of time you actually look up something through social media. So if you notice now, every big impact factor journal, whether it is any GM, whether it is medical teacher, it is medical education, it is clinical teacher, it is academic medicine, they all have their own either blog or podcast, and they all have links to major social media platforms to disseminate uh, the research that is going on. So everyone has a Twitter channel at least. There's some mechanism of disseminating information through all of these channels. There's a social media editor for almost most of the big journals now, because they understand that this method of research promotion is probably the most effective and the fastest right now, and the world is actually looking and listening to it. Now it discusses the big five social media. I like to call them the big five because these are the ones that are used the most and how they are used. So what I see in my own practice and what I see with other people who use the social media a lot is that Twitter became very, very popular as a community of practice, where people would build social networks, educators could talk to each other, they could work with each other, and they started creating tutorials. Tutorials, the word is just basically derived from the word tutorials that we use in medical education, where they're very small snippets or information threads that we can share with each other. So it's an example of how connectivism works in real life. You know, how people can connect, information is shared, you can talk about those things, you can ask people why do they think this is right, what is your opinion, and it's done in 150 characters. So it's actually quite uh, short, concise, and precise for everyone who's going through that information. So Twitter was known for tutorials, journal clubs. I still know that there are journal clubs of radiology that are very well maintained on Twitter. They post the link of an article, and then they just, start making small snippets and comments about it. And then it's one time is given to everyone where everyone can actually interact and they can work on it. Then comes TikTok. TikTok is not one of my preferred mediums, to be honest. I'm not that TikTok savvy. But I've seen that the new generation, particularly Gen Z, they're very good with it, and they know how to add clinical tips, small visual information, small information bites, and they can make those um, memes and informal chats on TikTok, which can be used for learning also. Then obviously there's Facebook. Facebook has the edge of creating groups. So, you can create a particular group. Let's say there's a group for SIVU medical education seminars. So in that group, we could actually put up all the videos, and people who are added to that group, they could see it, and then the privacy can be adjusted. Then comes Instagram, which is right now, according to the current algorithm, Instagram is the most popularly used social media in the world. So again, Instagram has a lot to do with visual learning. So surgical videos, radiographs, content about careers, anything that can be done strongly in a visual way. It is now on Instagram, and it is being spread very, very fast. Then comes WhatsApp. WhatsApp is good for discussions, for case-based learning, for any sort of telecommunication skills. You can, use WhatsApp to practically share any sort of information like PDFs, videos, memes, whatever form you find that you want to communicate in. And then again, because it has end-to-end encryption, so people feel comfortable using WhatsApp. So all of these things are broadly being used in social media and medical education. The problem comes where there's no definite border as to where to stop their use, how to regulate their use, and how to exactly curtail who you are sharing information with and what information you are sharing. So, we're going to be talking more about that and how to use it formally in scholarship. Now, whenever I've just given some examples, and I'll be giving some more practical examples in a few minutes. But Dr. Hasnain has also given something which I have actually seen on his SlideShare before. It's a wonderful presentation, and I'd recommend everybody to see it later. It's about social media for research and notes taking. So it's an example of how you can formally integrate social media into your work. All right. So now what has to be understood is that everything has to work according to a certain plan or according to a certain criteria. The first thing you do is you choose the social media you want to use as a dedicated physiologist or as a dedicated pathologist, because I work in physiology and then obviously medical education. So those are the two things I can speak about more comfortably. So let's say I designed a Facebook group for my students of MBBS for first year physiology. Now I have to see how am I going to put the content out, what content I'm going to put out, how much duration that content is going to be. And in social media, the one thing you have to be very, very careful about is that what are the consequences of the information that I am going to put out. So, whenever you are generating a post, whether it's just a general post about introducing somebody, or whether I'm doing a post about the next journal club for ESME, or I'm doing a post about the AME conference, I have to be very careful in wording uh, the way I'm putting it out, because social media is basically disseminating something to everyone and then giving your opinion to everyone, and then everyone is entitled to talk back on it. So you have to understand that there's going to be trolling. There are going to be people who will think that you are the absolute right expert or authority in this field, and what you have written is right. It will be disseminated in the same way forward. It may be discussed, it may be discouraged. So you have to be very, very careful and already plan according to the principles of online design what you're going to do. So personally, I try to keep things very short and preferably sweet. So the first thing I use is Bloom's digital taxonomy. I'll just show you. This is Bloom's digital taxonomy. It is an adaptation. You can find it online. It is an adaptation of obviously the original Bloom's taxonomy. And it shows you about the type of content that you are creating. What is the better way of doing it? For example, if you are at a lower level of taxonomy and you're giving out information to a particular group of students who are undergraduate and who are first year. So you may have to use something that is for remembering and understanding. So when I'm at the level of remembering or understanding, and I just have to give tidbits of information out to students, uh, I prefer to actually use very short sentences. I prefer to use one or two diagrams, and I prefer that they try to search it out themselves. So my main tool for these things would either be Twitter, which has very short messages, or Facebook with a very short message, and then I try to link it out to Google or some other website from which they can actually, take that information out themselves. So this is information which is basically being repeated or being just disseminated for their journal consumption, and it's not very interactive. So it's not the best of use of social media that you would have. I pause in the middle just to see the comments so that I don't miss out on anything. All right. Then is applying. So applying is basically when you're carrying out, executing, or implementing something. And applying for me is an analysis and applying are the two levels which I think are quite safely used on social media and students interact very well. So, you can make journal clubs, you can make groups where students are using mind maps. And I think for student grouping, for me personally, Facebook works very well because it can create a whole group of students. There's another social media platform called Slack, which I advocate a lot because it's like a more personal Facebook. Facebook has issues with privacy settings that keep changing. Slack is something you can download. It has channels, and one particular group can follow a number of channels together, and they can work together in a safe space. So there's very less privacy intrusion over there, and it also has the app on the phone with a WhatsApp like interface, so it's very easy to communicate. So for educational interventions, I prefer Slack, where you can actually give them some sort of a video. You can ask them to edit that video. You can ask them to comment on it. You can ask them to create one. So applying analysis and creating that comes more towards the higher end, and you have to just choose that what you're going to do and which platform you're going to use. For evaluation and creating, uh, I have had students who have come up with wonderful ideas about, because they're more savvy than us in this. So YouTube is one of the very, very innovative and good ways in which students can create videos. They would remix blogs, they can make new things, they can post their own wikis, and they can post vlogs, collaborate together, network. So all of these channels, according to Bloom's taxonomy, you just have to do a little planning as to what is the task you want your students to do, or what is the task that you want to do. So you have to give it a bit of time. For me personally, I'm not very visually savvy that way. I it takes me time to create videos, and I usually don't have that much time. So my preferred mode of communication is through words, and that's why the social media I am most comfortable with is either LinkedIn or Twitter, because over there I can use words. I can, perhaps put up an image or a very small video, which is to my requirement. But there are people like Dr. Glaucoma, and you might have heard about him. He's an ophthalmologist. He's a very big social media celebrity for medical education. He makes educational videos which are very, very funny. But since he's adept at making videos and it's visual, so his work is more towards Instagram, TikTok. Um, it flows more in that direction. So you have to choose your platform and your strategy. The next thing is that if you're planning an intervention, particularly something in which you will have students involved or faculty interacting with each other, the Ghani's 9 events of instruction always helps. So if I make a short group on WhatsApp where I want to go through a certain portion of my curriculum or a certain chapter, I have to take the learning objectives. I have to see what level the students are on, their prior learning. I have to choose the best way and the shortest way in which I can present content. Because remember, online teaching and learning and social media learning, both of them, the shorter and crisper and very must know information that you can give, the better. Because otherwise, these are modes of distraction for everyone. So students get burnt out very quickly. There's technological burnt out, there's the burden on the eyes, there's the temptation to see everything else going on social media. So you have to be very, very careful about planning what is the prior content, what is the present content, how are you going to ask the students to actually practice on this, how will you assess them. So the whole thing has to be very, very well planned. I work with students on WhatsApp, on Facebook, and both of them have the ability that you can actually create MCQs over there. You can ask students to, answer there and then, through the polls option, and you can see the correct answer or the wrong answer right there, and formatively you can assess them, and you can provide feedback, live feedback to them over there. Or if you provide that feedback and they look at it later on, so that becomes like an asynchronous thing. But it requires a bit of understanding and planning on your part. Then where do you want to start from? Then obviously, with any sort of technology, any sort of internet usage, you have to understand that the Myers principles of technological learning has to be used. So you have to understand coherence, that just keep interesting information, take away all the irrelevant stuff. Choose your modality carefully. If it's you think you can use words, that would be great. If you think you can use videos, that would be great, but don't make it such an overload of animation or such an overload of words or such an overload of graphics that it's overwhelming. Try to indulge one or two senses maximum, and don't make it so overstimulating that the person actually forgets. Again, social media is conversational. It has it's that's why it's social, because it's supposed to be something which you can, behave like you're talking to each other. So present everything in a style that is not very formal. If you want them to get formal information, you can always link them to books, you can link them to research articles. But when you're trying to disseminate anything to social media, try to make it in the most easy and most conversational jargon language that is possible for you. Last thing is very interesting. This is the master's hierarchy of technology and social media needs. So it takes from Maslow's hierarchy. And because social media has now become a part of our actual physiological needs, so it's important to understand that where are we lying on this, and where are our students lying on this, so that we can actually, work with them. I work in Pakistan. Uh, we have a lot of net issues, we have a lot of electricity issues, and at times, higher bandwidth websites will not be working for us. So you see that the physiological needs now are that the mobile technology needs to be able to work. There should be power, network, space, and connectivity. So, first and foremost, you have to make sure that the sort of social media that you are frequently using, can it be used all the time where you are? So, for example, the 4G networks that we use on our mobiles are usually accessible even if the electricity is not there. WhatsApp is one of those medias which requires very less bandwidth. So it's easy to use. Similarly, mobile companies are now giving, because social media is such a huge thing here, mobile companies are providing with access to Facebook. So again, it's low bandwidth access. So you can, actually use Facebook with information, less pictures, less videos. Those are the things you can think about. If you are in an area where you know that there's going to be no problem with your internet connection, there is no ban on any particular social media, then please go ahead and use that. But if I understand that in Pakistan, Twitter has recently been restricted. There are other parts of the world where TikTok, Twitter, WhatsApp are restricted. So you have to understand that you have to pick a media which is going to be workable where you are. So after the physiological need, that is that you get your workable social media, you have to look at the safety. So what is the safety? That there should be patient, preceptors, students in healthcare system, everyone needs to feel protected. Now that safety has to do with a few things. The first is privacy settings, which you will now easily find in almost all social media. Twitter now has privacy settings for separate channels. Facebook always had groups that could be private. WhatsApp is a private network. So you can look at those, but again, out of those, you have to see that in some of them, privacy settings are breachable. So ideally, choose a network which is good for you, and which you think is more private. I would recommend Slack if it is accessible in your parts of the world. Slack is probably the most private and safe out of all of them. Okay, then love and belonging. The use of social media needs to be legitimate. It needs to be positive. It needs to be something which is not uh, excluding people out. It's not, sort of challenging your hierarchical needs. We'll be discussing this ahead also. And then it has to be something uh, which builds up self-esteem of your audience, of your students, or all of your participants. So if you're discussing some sort of intervention, if you're discussing some sort of medical education thing going on, you have to see if it's giving a positive message out. And the last is, when everybody's good with the social media usage that you are doing for them, is when they're also able to use it for their learning, personal, and professional development. So, this self actualization stage is the stage we are aiming for and we want to use now. Now, I'm just going to give a few examples of social media and scholarship. These are things I mentioned to you 5 minutes ago about how social media can be used in mentorship, communities of practice, and various other things. So, the first is how I used it as a community of practice with my students. This is an older group, but it was one of the most successful groups, so I tend to use this example more. We created a physiology discussion group for my dental students of the batch of 18 to 21. And this group was basically just during their off time after they had completed the academic year. We were posting important points related to MCQs as well as questions so that students could revise over here. And you can see that over here, I have written down the ground rules, which is very important whenever you're dealing with students, that to what extent do you want them to use social media with you? So it was a very basic group where I would put out questions. I would encourage students to make and put out their own questions, and then everybody else would chip in and they would actually answer those questions or put out their notes. And it actually worked really well. We had a study on this, and students thought that it was very effective. So this is one of the more simple ways in which you can use social media. Here you can see this is Twitter. This is now known as X, but the interface is the same. So Twitter allows you to use communities of practice. So in Twitter, you can have this community section, and there's a community that's known as hashtag #meded, which is one that I use very frequently. You can see over here that somebody had asked for a book, and I think within approximately 15 minutes, he got the first reply about where he could find that book. And so it's a very powerful and very good tool for actually interacting with people of your own community, of your own subject. There are other communities that exist on Twitter that I follow, for example, technology enhanced learning. There's one on social media. So these are all social networking areas which you can use. This is one of our articles from the Clinical Teacher where we used Slack as a platform for social media learning. So we actually took permission from the NHS and used 15 medical schools in the UK in this particular study. And we created a dermatology uh, platform where we actually had different channels. One was for a journal club, one was for image of the day, one was for patient interaction. And we enrolled students over there. And every day the students would, according to their curricula, be revising and looking at information on that particular platform. So I was in charge for the journal club, and the journal club would occur weekly. It was synchronous. We would put a Zoom link over there, and then the students would actually interact through that Zoom link with me. And afterwards, they could actually send messages in the Slack platform and ask if they had any problems with the article or if they had anything that they didn't understand. Similarly, one of our colleagues, he did image of the day, where he would paste an image of, say, herpes or psoriasis or something. And students would asynchronously discuss about what that thing was and what was the treatment, how could they go about it. And then the wonderful one, which I really liked, was the patient cases. So in certain hospitals, we got consent from patients who would actually send small videos, or who would actually come on Zoom and discuss certain situations with students, and their privacy was keep fully taken care of, and all sorts of consent were taken from them. Only the exposure they were comfortable with was done, but students really actually interacted and responded to that portion a lot. So all of this was done on social media through Slack. We were all not from the same place. I was geographically far away, and even the rest of them, all of them were not London based. So, but it was very, very interesting and interactive. The article is present on in the Clinical Teacher, and you can all go and go through the whole thing. This is just a short view of my community of practice. These are all people through the AMI community, through other communities that I work with, who are close to me, who have all acted as mentors to me, who all work with me very closely on social media, and I've all gained a lot from all of them. So it's just an example of how you reach out to people and how they reach out to you and they work together. So those were just practically some examples of the things that I have been doing, that have going on around in the world, and there's so much more that can be done and that is being done. Moving towards some of the pros of social media. So the first is fast information dissemination. Like I showed you in the community example, that the person posted something and you got an answer within seconds. So it's very fast. It's one of those networking things that just takes split seconds and information goes ahead. There's a lot of diversity. If I am talking to somebody from some other place who might not be comfortable talking to me live, maybe, or from some other gender, uh, or maybe from some other hierarchical status, that's somebody very senior, social media actually helps with that, and it gives you a more diverse perspective. Then it can be used for mentoring and coaching. So you can easily we have a mentorship program at UMDC working right now, in which we have WhatsApp as one of the methods of peer mentoring. So students who are selected as mentors in final year, they interact mostly through WhatsApp with their mentors from fourth year, but they are faculty members present in the group, just to regulate that the spirit of the group does not, stray away from mentoring. So we don't participate. We're there as passive observers, and we don't comment if even if there's something which we think is, not going in favor of something the faculty would talk about. That's something that we are all aware of, and that we have trained the faculty for. But students, they interact easily through that, because otherwise they have classes, they don't have time, and it's very, very, it works quite well. We've been doing it for a few years, and the students are quite satisfied with it. Obviously, lastly, there's networking. So, like, I'm talking to all of you, and you can reach out to me, I can reach out to you. So it's going we if we communicate through Twitter or through social media, it's a very fast and a very quick network forming resource. Now, wherever there are pros of something, there are obviously cons also. The first thing, which unfortunately everybody has to be careful of and everybody faces, is cyberbullying. So whether you're trying to make a change, you're trying to put something good forward, there will always be some sort of interaction which might be uncomfortable, negative, or even in a sense that it seems like it's some sort of bullying going on. So that is one of the biggest drawbacks of social media. It's easy to be anonymous and talk bad about someone. So it takes out your armchair revolutionaries. It takes out people who can criticize on things, and the ugly part of uh, feelings and emotions, and the ugly part of humankind actually comes out. Another very, very big issue is the dissemination of fake information on such platforms. That is why I am a big advocate of medical educationists and doctors to actually be using social media, because I think that the responsibility lies on us to actually give out genuine, well thought out, and good information, so that after some time people do have that sense of differentiating between the genuine and the fake. However, right now, if you notice the algorithms, the patterns, and your own personal experiences, you'll see that there's a lot of information which makes very little medical sense, but it will have 100 followers, 1,000 followers, 200,000 followers, and people will actually be disseminating and practicing it. And this is a dangerous practice. And it only exists because of the monetization aspect of social media, which a lot of people have exploited in a very negative sense. So I think if there's more genuine medical information, if there are more genuine monetized medical channels, uh, that would actually work wonders for everybody. The last one that I've made, that the blurring issue, is it's also something which is a common complaint about in our community. That is a blurring of your personal and professional identities, because obviously social media has a lot of personal sharing. People work with it for their families, for their friends, for their groups, and if you try to use it for professional usage, you tend to get lost in that translation of till what time are you going to use it professionally, where are you the doctor, and then where are you the friend, where are you the brother, the sister. So that is one of the challenges which a lot of us face regarding our professional and personal identity formation on social media. Now, the thing with identity and social media is that I personally, and I've asked a lot of other people who work on social media also, and most of them tend to agree that you should keep your professional and personal social media accounts separate if possible. So I don't indulge with any sort of professional information on Instagram. I'm not very good with the personal social media usage, but my Instagram is totally personal. It will, if I ever post over there, it will be posts of my family, my friends, or some of us interacting together. I make sure that I don't have people who have been my patients, uh, people who are my current students, or people who I'm very academically involved with on my personal Instagram. That is because um, when you are in a field such as medicine and you are treating somebody, you are held at a different pedestal. So a person who comes to you as a patient is not going to be able to understand or to interact with you as a friend. So that's why most social media policies, wherever they are formed, they actually discuss this, that do not add your patients or people who are working under you particularly, or your students or your trainees on social media platforms, because there's a lot of um, boundaries there which might, you might not be able to explain to them later of what is going on, because they don't understand or comprehend you in the way people who are very personally close to you do. So I would recommend for this that if you do have to use your social media at all for personal use, keep that account away and safe from the account that you are using publicly. You can use two different platforms. If not two different platforms, you can use two different accounts, or you can avoid doing one or the other altogether. Okay, so now I'm going to come towards the professional part of this presentation. Of late, in the Western countries, has and now also somewhat in the global South Asian movement, because of the importance of social media as a part of our lives, social media is now entering formally into scholarship. So I have noticed that people in various conferences, as well as when I interact with other social media medical educationists who work with me, people are actually using their social media pages to build their portfolio. So whenever you have some sort of an interaction with somebody who's very influential on social media, you get some sort of a reward or an award, you get some sort of acknowledgement. It is now recommended that you screenshot and bank all of those. You keep that library with you. And there will be a point in time, there are certain places who are checking your social media portfolio. So it may actually support your scholarship and career in the future. Now, how do you use social media for scholarship? This is an article by Jonathan Sherbino and his team, and they are some of my favorite people to follow for social media. They are also the team that works for Key Lime podcast and then Papers podcast, which has now recently been disseminated. This is the criteria. If you are trying to use social media for your original scholarship, the first thing is that the things that you are posting, the things that you are putting forward, they have to be original. It has to be something that is not pasted off somebody else's wall. It has to be something not copied from a textbook. It has to be original concept. And it has to be something that is adding to the field of medical education or to the field of clinical education by building on some research, some best practice, or some theory.
जब
So,
तुम्हारा चीज यहाँ ले लेके जा रहा था तो तुमने क्यों नहीं किया? मेरा चीज ले लिया, मेरी चीज ले लिया। हाँ, अजीब इंसान हो यार तुम। यहाँ पे
okay,
भी तो
I'd
बोलना चाहिए
request,
था, मेरी चीज ले लिया, सब ले
all right,
ले
thank
जाओ, ले
you.
जाओ।
Then the third thing that Shabina talks about is that if you're using it for scholarship, it has to be archived and disseminated. So dissemination is obviously done by posting it actively on a public platform. So that's maybe Facebook for some, Twitter for others. You can disseminate it by tagging people into it, by tagging other medical education websites into it, by tagging other social media platforms into it. And archiving basically means that you save it. So there are options to archive your information in Instagram. Instagram keeps archives. Facebook has backlogs. Similarly, Twitter can archive information. So you must have a record of that actual piece that you wrote or that you disseminated. And then you have to give it to your community. It's not something which you will paste with disabled comments. It has to be something which you are disclosing to your community. They are going to be able to comment on it and they're going to be able to give you feedback in a transparent fashion so that it actually informs some sort of a discussion. So that is going to be considered as genuine scholarship on social media, and that is where you will gain respect and traction from experts who are on social media, and they will actually consider it worth their time to engage on. Otherwise, it will just again be a victim of doom scrolling that somebody will just see it and scroll to the next post. That is known as doom scrolling, which is something we all fall into, that we're just, looking at things and they're things which we think are not useful, but we're just, going through our time and our energy on social media. So these are the criteria I want you to remember whenever you want to make your original point or argument or post on any social media platform of choice. Now, with social media and with the usage, there comes cultural aspects. Being from the global south, being from an Islamic country, there's certain norms and cultures that are followed in Pakistan, which need to be followed on our social media platforms also. Keep as neutral as possible. Do not engage in political debate. Do not engage in any debate which contains religious sentiment, because these things are not poor in influencing in medical education, and secondly, they are considered disrespectful and they are considered harmful in your culture. If you belong to a culture which has a lot of mixing of politics into the education sector, a lot of issues that can be discussed, and things which openly are discussed, and by all means, you can actually do that. But you have to see where to draw the line according to the sort of social practices going on ground. So social media is basically always going to be a depiction of what is happening in real life. It's just going to be a slightly glamorized depiction, but it is taking its roots from real life. So you have to see the norms that you are following in office, in culture, in your setup, and you have to make sure that you bring the same norms onto your digitalized platforms. Otherwise, they don't look authentic and they are not appreciated, because people will always be drawn towards the realistic view that they have. Whenever they're talking about scholarship, they want to see genuine things. So it's a different thing if you are um, a social media influencer or a blogger or a vlogger. You can make dreams and show people things that are not there. But when we are talking about medical education or health professionals education scholarship, it has to be realistic, it has to be contextual, it has to be culturally responsive. Then there are hierarchical aspects. So in collective societies, I can give the example of my own country. I think there are similar norms that exist in India, in China, that we have a lot of respect and a lot of hierarchical difference between senior and junior faculty, between residents and trainees, between attendings and consultants. So that has to, it's something that is sometimes blurred on social media. But if you belong to such a place or such a setup, then you have to sort of try to be respectful in those limits also. Try not to impinge on the privacy of people who are not at the same hierarchical level, or people who might not be able to understand or accept that certain amount of frankness that comes online. So try to respect them in all means. Try to collaborate in a respectful way. And then when you are collaborating with people who come from a different hierarchical setup, for example, when I talk to people from England or from the United States, and there's somebody senior to me, and I say, sir, so after two or three times, I get a very clear response that please no, you address us by this name or this way. And then, I try to adjust to that. So, in the same way, when they are trying to adjust with your hierarchical setups, they try to adjust. So, you have to understand that you have to keep that distance of hierarchy in areas where it is respected, and then try to maintain a more neutral approach in areas where it doesn't matter. But it will be there on the internet also. People sometimes misconceive this, that they can write anything about anyone on social media and get away with it, which is not really true. You may all be well aware of this, that international medical graduates who do USMLE, um, their social media platforms are sometimes checked by the program where they have applied. This was one such study in which a social media account was checked by young vascular surgeons, and it was published in a journal which is highly reputable and has quite an impact factor. However, later it was retracted because of multiple ethical issues. Now, the takeaway from this study is that what I want to tell everyone is that we have to show responsible behavior as medical professionals on social media. This study no way was, ethical, or it was a proponent that should be done, that, you explore people's identifiable social media accounts and you judge them on that. But it does show the general sentiment that comes in people when they see medical professionals. So what happens here is that 480 young vascular surgeons were identified, out of which they found 235 who had public social media accounts. And they actually judged them on those social media accounts. So 25% had potentially unprofessional content. And unprofessional content, they were judged for, some sort of social or religious topics they talked about, um, their attire, consuming alcohol. And then there was some clearly unprofessional content, which obviously uh, was depicting their personal life with uncensored profanities, with offensive comments about colleagues and patients. And this study was actually published. So, what this shows is that whatever you're doing online, it actually is not something which is secret. Everybody knows everything. So, you have to be very careful if you are in a professional capacity and you hold a social media presence and you hold a public presence, that what you are giving out will be consumed and will be used, and it can be used in ways which are against you. So that gives a lot of responsibility, particularly as a healthcare professional, about the image we are building online to actually propagate our scholarship. Now, this brings me to the last part of the webinar, that what are the do's for social media usage to curate a scholarly social media? The first is follow the code of conduct that you have been given. If you are a member of the GMC, if you are a member of the NHS, they have a very well documented social media conduct. They are in Pakistan, we don't have a generalized social media conduct for every, for the whole country. But institutions like the Aga Khan have a communication and social media conduct. We have a social media policy at the University of Faisalabad. Other institutions are following somewhat policies related to this, and those have to be adhered to. So the first thing is follow your respective code of conduct wherever you are. The second is always promote equity, inclusion, and diversity, because this is a platform which is one of the easiest ways in which you can actually help with EDI promotion. It is a harmless way of actually giving the other person space to speak, express their opinions, or it is a encouraging way of asking people from diverse backgrounds, from less resourced areas, from the gender which is less preferred, from sickness, illness, disability, to actually work and communicate on an equal basis. So always be a proponent of EDI on social media. Then share responsibly. This is very, very important. If you are sharing information from somebody else, please counter check it. Make sure that what you are sharing is valid, it is ethical. I don't know about other places, but you can relate to this in Pakistan, that you get WhatsApp forwards from all over the world, which are sometimes, being a doctor, you see people treating AIDS with ginger and stuff like that, and it's forwarded to you as some very effective thing. So just make sure that, if you are sharing something forward, at least go through it, read it, and make sure if it's authentic or not. Because coming from somebody from the medical community, from the health professionals community, there will be people who will believe it based on your sharing. And then own it. If you have put something on social media, whether it's a positive or a negative comment, whether it's a share, whether it's a quote, you have to take responsibility. It is not done by accident. It is a public platform. It is something that you have planned and put up. So you have to understand that. Um, Create separation in your private and professional space for your own well being, for the safeguarding of your professional health, your mental health, your private space, the well being of your family and your friends. Try to have some sort of separation, whether it is in the form of two accounts, whether it is in the form of timing or some sort of privacy settings. Try to come up with a plan for that. Know your platform. So this is very important. Understand that social media policies change. Nothing is truly confidential. Whatever you are putting on the internet has a blueprint, has a fingerprint, which can be used by anybody at a particular point in time. So know the privacy settings of your platform, know how to share information, know how to boost likes, know how to get more likes, know the algorithm of the platform. Right now, the popular algorithm in social media is visual. So short videos known as reels, they are the most effective way of communicating information if you can do that. Try to share your story. Share your story, spread positivity, give good influence, give good vibes, give good information forward. The world is too small to actually, be looking at people's faults, be looking at negative things, be looking at things that didn't work. There's no productivity in putting out things that failed, unless, you tried to make it work and it turned around into a success story. Otherwise, there's no point in putting out critical, critiquing material on the internet. It's not an effective use of time. And finally, have legal awareness that if you are using social media, every country now has some sort of social media protection acts. Know if you are a part of cyberbullying, whom you can call, where you can work, um, who will be more effective for that. Understand that there's a legal helpline everywhere. If nothing else, understand the legalities of the platform you are using. So you can report misconduct on Facebook, even on WhatsApp. You can block them, you can report them, you can get some sort of safety measures. So whenever you're using social media, do know all of this. Another thing is that before you tweet, make a friend, update, blog, publish, or anything, think about these P's. Purpose, why are you sharing the information? Privacy, who is going to look at it, and where else can it go? So always be careful whenever you're sharing, particularly images of patients or data, that what is going to happen. Think about the patient. If the patient saw this, would they recognize themselves? Would they be comfortable with that? What is going to happen? Then think about yourself, that if someone posted this about you, how would you feel? Think about your profession. How might this impact the image of your profession? Think about protection. Are your privacy settings the best or the strictest you have? Permission. How have you obtained the permission, and have you cited other people's work? Are you taking credit where it's not due? And always remember that it is permanent. Once you post something on social media, it can never come back. It's online. Whether you delete it or whatever, it's out on the World Wide Web. Social media content is always archived and it can come back at any time, anywhere. So don't think that it has gone. It's always going to be there. So please think about these things whenever you are posting. Don'ts on social media. This is very important. It's going to take a little time. The first is, do not give out medical advice on the internet, on social media platforms, which public can see. So it's not the best place for treating people. If you want to treat somebody, if you want to give them medical suggestions, the best thing is that you ask them to actually visit you or a professional doctor. Ask them to talk to you one on one. Ask them to communicate on a platform which is respectable and private, not something which 10 other people will be able to see. The second don't is do not use social media as your personal vendetta shaming playground. So if somebody has done bad to you, or if you think that somebody does not deserve a promotion, or somebody does not have an authentic publication or whatever, there is no need to put out that dirty linen online. The third thing is do not ever use social media as a primary knowledge source. Social media was never meant to be a primary knowledge source. It is meant to be promoting connectivism. It is meant to be promoting networking. So, yes, you can put out information, you can discuss things, you can discuss the pros and cons, you can discuss theories, but you can't recommend people that this is the place where you'll learn everything from. Nothing will replace the medical knowledge that you get through evidence based research, through journals, and finally through textbooks. All right, these are, I like to call them the 10 commandments I made for having a social media account that is likable. The first is try to be as consistent as you can when you are posting. So, this depends on obviously your position, on the amount of time you have, and the amount of expertise you have. I try to post consistently almost every week. At least once every week is my aim because I get busy sometimes. Otherwise, I try to post 2 times a week so that there's a maintenance of a schedule and people who follow me know that something is going to come up. Focus on very high quality content. If you have to put on images, if you have to have pictures, they have to be the best quality you can find. If you want to write a caption, take a few minutes and make it as engaging and as entertaining as you can. Use hashtags, but use them very wisely. Only use those hashtags which are relevant to your post. I see posts with around 10 million hashtags, and what happens is that that post gets into spam or it gets banned, and you don't find out because the new algorithm, unfortunately, because of whatever is happening in Palestine, all social media tends to ban any sort of content which has more than 5 hashtags because somehow they have the fear that we will be propagating or discussing about the injustice in Gaza. So it will not be used for a broader audience if you use too many hashtags. Try to use as few as possible, only the ones which you think are relevant. Engage with audiences, try to respond to whatever comments that come, try to respond with answers. That leads to people getting more interest because they feel welcome on your account. Try to collaborate with as many as people as possible on social media and stay authentic. If you have created an account that is dedicated to a certain subject, try to stay to that brand or to that subject. And that authenticity will actually attract more followers and more people. Optimize your posting time. So, this is a slightly advanced thing, but you can actually use analytical tools to see at what time of the day your audience is most active. And you can actually have, that time of the day as your favorite posting time. Use eye catching visuals. It's always attractive to have something which has color, good graphics to start your post with. Follow trends. So you have to look at trends. You have to see what sort of social media posts, what is the, like I mentioned right now, the reels are right now the basic algorithm. Sometimes it changes to text, it changes to pictures. So you have to follow that. That creates more visibility and creates more engagement. Now, the last thing, I think I've taken a lot of time. We will have Q&A in just 2 minutes. This is the action plan I want everybody to follow. Take a few minutes and write down the social media platforms that you use professionally, your current use of social media, how much are you using professionally, how much are you using personally, are you using anything at all professionally? And then jot down a plan that how are you going to use social media for your professional development. So, for example, you want to disseminate information about physiology, or you want to have a journal club, or you want to have a platform where you're just putting out announcements of other people's webinars and seminars. It's more like a bulletin board sort of a platform. So put that out there. What do you want to do? And then check the possible challenges you will have in doing that. So once you do all these 4 things, you'll get a clear picture of what platform you want to use, what platform you're already using, what will be the problems, and you'll easily be able to navigate towards safer and better social media scholarship. that you can create. These are some of the references. You're always welcome to ask or question me at any point. I'm sharing my email address as well as my Twitter and LinkedIn address in the chat. So if you want to add me on Twitter or you want to follow me on LinkedIn, you are more than welcome. I'm very active on both the platforms. All right, with that, I'm thanking you all for your patience and your complete silence. Surprisingly, either it was way boring or you actually were involved. So please now the floor is open for any sort of questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Komal. It was an amazing presentation, and I'm sure everybody else feels the same. Anything else? Any questions, comments, everyone? Okay, I know there are some people who are trying to open up the Google Doc that I just added for certification. I'm going to stop.